Hey, it's Dave Chapin. Welcome to the Wolf Sports YouTube channel. There are plenty of terrifying things in the NFL. Missed kicks, bad contracts. But in honor of Halloween, we're highlighting the most feared players in NFL history. I'm actually going to start with maybe the most underrated player of all time, Reggie White. Aside from his one season with the Panthers in 2000, when he returned after a year in retirement, the Hall of Fame defensive lineman had at least 8 sacks in all 14 seasons with the Eagles and Packers. The sack numbers are just mind-blowing. In year 3, the Minister of Defense had 21 sacks for his first Defensive Player of the Year award. He did that in 12 games. 21 sacks in 12 games is insane. That was sandwiched by seasons of 18 sacks. And then in his final season with the Packers, he had 16 sacks at age 37 and won Defensive Player of the Year again. White had 3 sacks in the Super Bowl. Like many feared players, he had an unstoppable go-to. He used the hump move to totally move massive offensive linemen out of the way. Everyone loses reps, but to be able to do this to even players like fellow Hall of Famer Larry Allen, it shows what an incredible talent White was. Bruce Smith is the NFL's all-time sack king with 200, but White was right behind him at 198 career sacks in almost 50 fewer games than Smith. Plus, White had 23.5 sacks in his first 2 professional seasons, which actually came in the USFL, and of course don't count for his career sack total in the NFL. I don't know why White seemingly doesn't get as much recognition as other all-time defenders, but you can make an easy case for him as the GOAT, and someone that put fear even into monstrous offensive linemen. Next is legendary linebacker Lawrence Taylor. Talk about a boogeyman. Many, including Bill Belichick, who coached him with the Giants, have called LT the single greatest defensive force in NFL history. This guy ended drives before they began. In 1986, he did something that might never happen again. He won the league MVP. As a defensive player, he had 20.5 sacks, 105 tackles, and 2 forced fumbles that season. Taylor basically redefined what was possible for the linebacker position. His speed-to-power combination was terrifying, so terrifying that many credit LT with making another LT, left tackle, a premium position in the NFL. Teams had to pay left tackles to stop a player like Taylor, or at least try to limit, to some extent, him totally wrecking the game from the blind side. Taylor wasn't just feared, he forced organizations to structurally change the way they build teams. When you win an NFL MVP on defense, you're scary. Next, another linebacker, Ravens great Ray Lewis, also played his entire career for one team like Taylor did. The vibes of this pick are about as intimidating as it gets, and Lewis helps represent the 2000s era of football with other most feared defenders like Brian Dawkins, and like the Ravens overall, with safety Ed Reed as someone who quarterbacks were scared to death to even test on the back end. The intensity and intimidation of Lewis felt like it could have fit right in during Lawrence Taylor's era. He made sure his defenses would stop the run, and his underrated intelligence helped put himself and his teammates in the right spot to play sound defense. You might remember the hit stick in Madden 2005 when it debuted, when Lewis was on the cover, so it basically originated with him because of how hard he hit his opponents. Since 1978, when the NFL went to 16 games, the 2000 Ravens, led by Lewis, allowed the fewest points per game by a team in a season, with just 10.3 points per game allowed in 2000, and they won the Super Bowl that year, of course, so a championship defense that finished the job, Lewis helping lead the way with his all-around game from intelligence to hard-hitting, keeping opponents up at night. So that's 3 defenders in White, Taylor, and Lewis. Let's round this out with one offensive player as sort of a Mount Rushmore of most feared players in NFL history. First, a couple of honorable mentions on offense. Randy Moss, the way he can just score in an instant, the legendary stat lines he put up, definitely somebody that kept defensive coordinators up at night trying to figure out how to keep a top on him. And Moss was such a threat on the outside that the term Mossed came about because of him. And then similarly, Calvin Johnson, currently the single season record in receiving yards. Megatron, what a nickname. Johnson could do similar things to Moss. Megatron would literally go over like a few defenders, a few defensive backs could be there. Not only did he set the single season record in receiving yards, he had 329 receiving yards in a game against the Cowboys, which is the second most in NFL history. So you had 2 sort of modern offensive players to mention, as very feared, even on the outside. And there are throwback options as well on both sides of the ball. I'll mention Jim Brown and Earl Campbell. Look like terrors to get down on the open field. But we'll end this with Derrick Henry. His stiff arm basically turns offense to defense. You don't want to see that coming at you. Henry has a 2,000-yard season under his belt. For him to be that big and that fast, we don't have kings in America, but he earns the nickname of King Henry. That stiff arm, probably the most disrespectful and feared move in the modern NFL. Part of what makes Henry so scary is at the end of seasons, defenses really don't want to tackle him. Cold weather, teams are more tired toward the end of the year. And then it's demoralizing having a 250-pound guy built like a defensive end, one of the fastest players on the field, and expecting to bring it when he's getting the ball 20, 25, maybe more times in a game. King Henry's done it with both the Titans and the Ravens, and in terms of the fear he poses from the offensive side of the ball, it's probably unmatched. There are plenty of feared players in NFL history, but these guys stand out, especially in sort of the modern era. That said, is there anyone that definitely should have been included that we missed? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Happy Halloween, and thanks for watching.